ding. It does a little happy sound when you go live now.
Mine doesn't say I'm live
Hello.
yet.
Oh, it doesn't? Well, I'll wait for your ding.
Come on, iPad.
I haven't heard anything. Okay. Well, I was going to say your iPad's a liar. Hello, everyone.
Yeah,
Hello. We are back. That was a lipstick kiss on my hand. You like that? Classy.
Oh, we started how we need to go on.
Oh, let's see. Who do we got? We got Kate. Hi, Kate. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Julie B. Hello, Panzeria. Yeah. So, guys. Oh, you definitely are live. That's what they said. So, I am going to let Joey introduce this topic because I'm going to make sure the link is shared out everywhere so people know since we are doing this at a new time.
Share it everywhere.
Okay. Yes. Hi, Gothic. Hi, Shay. I'm sorry, I got excited. I don't see Gothic that much anymore.
Hi, Gothic. Hopefully this later time is better for people. Please let us know if it works better or worse for you guys. And we're going to play with it a little bit here and there just to see. Because I know that a lot of people have asked us to be a bit later than we were normally. So we're trying it.
Yeah. All right. So, Joey, go ahead and take it. I'm going to mute my mic and start putting out the link.
Okay. So, welcome back, guys. So we're going to be addressing over the next couple of days, and in fact over the next few podcasts probably, about the reclamation of certain words that get put out there with particular connotations. And the first one for this podcast, Googly Hangout, whatever we're calling them now, I forget. I get called so many things. I'm like, nee, is villain.
Shadow Death Tribe live.
We are.
That's what we're calling it.
Yeah. Shadow Death Tribe with glitter. And us. Anyway, stop that. I was trying
You dropped the ball there. You dropped the glitter ball.
Hang on, I need a dramatic pause now. Villain. So the first word we have is villain. So I'm going to invite you guys in the chat to respond to this and say, what is your favorite villain? And 1 or 2 description words as to why that is. So it can be a villain from a movie, it can be a Disney villain, it can be a villain from a book, it can be any villain you like. Just which is your favorite villain and why. And Chris will have to sort of put your answers over in a minute because I can't see chat on the iPad. I will be able to on mine, but when I have the laptop, but not for this one. So my favorite villain is Maleficent. Disney's Maleficent. Original
Everyone
Maleficent.
Is utterly shocked. Should we pause for that?
No one's shocked at all.
No one
and don't lie. My 2 words that I associate with Maleficent are powerful and enigmatic. And when I was like a little witch, by which I mean I was younger because I haven't.
A witchling.
I was absolutely obsessed with Maleficent, and I like had a stick that I would like bang down, like she banged that down and do the whole thing over the top, you know, where she scries in the top of the orb. And looking back, there's something quite more organic about Maleficent. She's got her crow. She's a fae, which Morrigan gets said to be in some retellings of the mythology. She gets called a fae or a bad spirit or whatever. She also has kind of like a shapeshifter element to her, Maleficent, and she like kind of fades in with light and darkness and shadows and things quite a lot. She obviously turns into a dragon at one point, so that's full on shapeshifter, which is something that the origin movie changed, which I really didn't like. That they changed it to be the crow shapeshifted into everything rather than her as a result of her magic. But I didn't mind the remake, the origin story remake, and that is something I'm going to touch on in a bit, because we have started changing how we see villains, even in media. So,
which is exciting.
Yeah. So, what about you, Chris? Who's your pick for a villain?
So I thought about this because, like, I usually sided with the villains as a kid. I was a weird kid. Like, I cheered on serial killers and stuff. Like, Michael Myers, totally, I had a crush when I was little. Not gonna lie. So, I was a strange child, and I accept that about myself. So it was a hard decision. But I think the first one that came into my mind when we talked about this, for me, was Ursula. Disney again. But Ursula had such swagger. I just freaking loved her swag. She was like from the hip, like, look, baby. And I just loved that about her. Also, being larger, and I've always been larger, she was someone who, like, was powerful, and she had curve, and she used it. Like, she just would, like, sashay her freaking tentacles around like it wasn't nothing. Like, she took up her space. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, like, for me, I would probably say swagger and power. I know.
There is an element of sovereignty to both, of course, as well, which is something else I'm going to talk about in a little bit, which is kind of like dark sovereignty. So there's that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. They do have a regalness. This is mine, and I own this, and that actually comes up a lot with villains. I think is the ownership of that.
Yeah, that's where we might be going with this.
Oh, yeah.
Nudge. You know what I mean?
So people in the comments. So let's see here. Gothic is saying, well, a couple people said Maleficent. We'll start with Julie. Julie says Maleficent because she has both a soft side and a hard side. Which was only really recently represented, I feel like, that soft side. They didn't really show it a whole lot.
In terms of the Disney movie, the medieval interplay which they've got going on with the court, like, they don't really emphasize it in the movie as much maybe as they could, but the light fairies being present and her being ignored was like this huge insult from the light fairies. So it would be akin to them declaring war on her by not inviting her. And that's like a whole medieval honor-based system thing, which is in the Disney movie, but perhaps doesn't come across until you actually know the kind of the background of it. So technically the light fairies declared war on Maleficent by doing that. Yeah. Which is, you know.
True. Yeah. Okay, so then Gothic next also says Maleficent and the Wicked Witch of the West, which a couple people I see are saying. Green, spurned, empowering women, taking back power and asserting control. I love them so much. Someone else is saying Wicked in theater, completely connected to her, the Wicked Witch of the West. Which in Wicked, they actually tell it from her point of view again.
Origin story,
you know, there's a lot of that coming out now.
Oh, yeah.
I totally agree. I mean, you can look at Thor in Hell, and even though, like, it's from Thor's position, they also kind of go into, like, the fact that Hell was covered up. And I won't say too much for people that have not seen that yet. Spoilers. But, you know, that even in itself gave her kind of that reason. And it's interesting to me that some of the best villains, I think, are the ones that they bring their humanity in. They don't just make them simply evil and simply good. Because you almost, like, feel for that person, even when you might not want to.
Yes. I don't know how many people have seen it, but in Jessica Jones, the Purple Man had this dimension to him, and you felt yourself weirdly rooting for him, and then you know, like, why am I rooting for this guy? He's not a good guy. He's an awful, and there was just something in the storytelling that was very well done.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good one, Rob. So my buddy Rob says, I'm a huge fan of Once Upon a Time's Rumpelstiltskin.
Oh, that is a good
He's
one.
totally a bad guy, but yet he's not.
Mm.
But he totally is, but he isn't. He's what I call the anti-hero.
Yeah.
Which is usually where I go. That's some of my favorite comic book legends, heroes, villains, that kind of story, are the Punisher and Spawn, and both of them are anti-heroes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a huge Punisher fan. I'm just saying, though. Why would you think that? Let's see. Riddler. Clever and self-assured. Wow. Yeah. Riddler is, that's a good one.
They portray him very interestingly in the new Gotham series.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is they don't always say how he got like that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really hear his story.
Harley Quinn is a big one for a lot of people lately. Like, a lot of people have taken to Harley Quinn. I know a little bit more about the Harley Quinn storyline. I'm actually more of a Poison Ivy fan than a Harley Quinn or a Catwoman, depending on who's portraying Catwoman, because a Catwoman could either be done well or badly.
Yeah. I'm really picky with Catwoman.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
That's a whole other conversation. And Molly is here, by the way.
Hey, Molly. Actually, Michelle Pfeiffer did a really amazing job when she was the bad witch in oh god, what's the name of it?
Was it Stardust?
That's it. Yeah. Stardust.
I think it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rumple is amazing. A price for everything, dearie. Well, and even the Evil Queen in that one, they also gave her humanity. Yeah. So let's see. Eric from Phantom of the Opera. That's a good one you don't hear about often.
They do. They do a very good job with True that. Who else we got?
Oh, geez. Let's see. So Baba Yaga is one of mine because she's a teacher, but only teaches the worthy. She'll scare you off if she can. I can hear the gears over there, just saying.
I love this subject. I'm holding back from verbal diarrheaing at everybody.
I know. Dexter. Yeah. That he was literally a serial killer in it. And they tell it from his point of view.
There's been a lot of that in more recent years, which is something we want to touch on. But we will let people talk about.
Yeah. Harley Quinn. Okay, Loki is being mentioned a couple times. Definitely. Khan from Star Trek.
Khan! I can't do that.
Oh, Jareth. And he's one that isn't very recent.
Who?
But Jareth from The Labyrinth.
Jareth's not a bad guy. He's just perfection.
He's totally a villain. He steals babies.
Yeah, but she didn't want him.
Darth Vader.
They're doing something with him, actually. They're doing a series about the origins of Jareth. They announced that recently. Darth Vader, yeah. That's a very interesting storyline because obviously they did his whole descent and then somewhat redemption.
Yeah. Sorry. Family's having a conversation about Thanksgiving and when to do it now.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you remind me of the Babe.
Don't get me started. The Babe with the power.
The power of voodoo.
Voodoo.
You do. Remind me of the Babe.
Remind me of the Babe.
My baby.
We could do that all episode.
We could. You guys have no idea when we're planning the journey work and stuff for the podcast. It gets ridiculous.
It's gotten to the point where I'm writing the journeys. I'm leaving jokes in there for Chris to find when she's going through it.
She totally did. Yes. Ah, Rebel Child says, I love this topic. Yeah, us too. We were like, there's so much in it. Like for me, I was like, there's so much that we could touch. I'm not even sure where to start. So Joey's like, hey, let's just ask them to name off qualities that their favorite villains have. Like what words do you associate with them? So Mummy, yeah, Imhotep. From the Mummy movies.
The original Mummy movies, yes. Well, not the original.
He just knew what he wanted and went against time and tradition for love. Well, that kind of brings me to Dracula.
I was going to say, I was waiting for a Dracula. I'm surprised we've not had
any
vampires.
Bram Stoker's, come on. Yeah. Or Frankenstein.
Gary Oldman as Dracula, jeez.
More accurately, Frankenstein's monster, but yes.
Technically, all of the Penny Dreadful characters have that kind of like dark dichotomy as well. That's a modern telling of the...
But even past that, I mean, like, Frankenstein's monster in the older stories still was seen as a monster. But it was told kind of like you got to watch his creation and see like he didn't really know what was going on. It was the doctor.
Yeah.
So like he was kind of an anti-hero there as well. I wouldn't say hero, maybe an anti-villain. Jigsaw, he's creative and charismatic and very smart.
I'm kind of against the Saw movies, so I'm just gonna sit that one out.
I'm just saying, very smart. Let's see. What else, guys? Voldemort. Okay, yeah, because they went into like his backstory.
Surely Snape would be the one though from the Harry Potter movies. Because
he's really...
Voldemort is just pretty much psychopathic from word go, whereas Snape had all these levels of, and that Draco Malfoy as well. They did that with to an extent that from the Harry Potter series.
Yeah. Oh, the Master or Missy from Doctor Who.
Oh, good choice.
I am not a Whovian. I am not against Whovians. I tried to watch it in the middle and that was a mistake. Don't start in the middle ever, people.
Yeah, it's confusing. Some of the
it was a bad idea.
Missy does a fantastic job. I love her.
Oh! Sorry, I got excited.
Go for it.
Moriarty from fucking Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a good one too.
Well, technically Sherlock
Smart
Holmes
and
is
cunning.
Hero. Technically Sherlock Holmes in himself, he's got elements within him which aren't.
But is the anti-hero the villain?
No, not necessarily. Is the villain these days? That's what we're
right. Exactly. So why do you think that things are shifting this way? Why do you think that maybe we're starting to look at that?
I have
my own theories, but I would like to hear from Miss Morris.
So I've got a couple of notes about this because my first thought, I actually cover this when I did the Dark Queen archetype for the blog. I covered that in this, that quite frequently the heroes are one-dimensional. Not always, but quite frequently. Whereas the villains are more complicated, they're more complex, they often have better stories, full stop, and they're more iconic. In a lot of cases, you can reel off the bad guys a lot easier, and I'm saying bad guys loosely, than you can the heroes. I mean, can you imagine how many comic book villains you could name versus how many heroes? You could probably get the main heroes that are like front and center, but I bet you could name all sorts of villains, even some of the more obscure ones, just because they're kind of iconic and they stick in your mind. So I honestly
they're different.
Yeah, and I often feel like there's an element of I don't know how to put it about heroes. There's like this hubris. There's like this snobbishness to a lot of heroes. There's this kind of holier than thou attitude to a lot of heroes. And in good storytelling, the stories that really, really resonate, they kind of play with that a little bit, and they reveal different aspects of all characters, whether they be hero or villain in the loosest sense. So it then starts to play about with our conceptions of things, and it makes it more human. And I think that in more recent times, there's been a call to examine the motivations and the backstories and the complexities of the villain, because they're more human. They're more inclined, they're more closely aligned with what it means to be human beings and feel all the many, many different kind of emotions and responses to being a human that and often, like, the heroes don't do that. The heroes are like, we must do it for honor, and that's it. Whereas you've got all these villains with, like, you know, they've had their heart broken, or they've lost someone, and that's caused the descent, and they've just lost their bearing along the way. They've lost their kind of port in a storm. They've lost their true north. They've lost something, which kind of then slowly spirals into these actions, which they justify. And we're surrounded by people in society, in government, in all walks of life that do these things. So it's not 100 miles away from the truth of people, if that makes sense. It feels more genuine.
Well, and I also have to wonder, on top of that, which I agree with, how much is also kind of a living vicariously as well. Because if they represent a lot of the things that we may subdue about ourselves or keep hidden because of maybe chasing perfection or, you know, things like this, which is not necessarily a bad thing with some things, you know, like with the hero being trustworthy and like saving people, helping out, like, you know, but maybe the villain represents that, you know, subconscious kind of need to get that out, that to vent, where maybe they feel like they wouldn't be able to otherwise.
There's also, of course,
does that mean like go leave a freaking skull dagger on everything? No, don't. But
oh, why not? I want to leave a skull dagger on everything. That sounds awesome.
I want to know where he gets so many. Just saying.
I'd just set for one. I'd love a skull dagger. But I also feel like there's a vilification of certain archetypes within society. So the witch and the dark queen, you were right over there.
I just forgot that I totally had a plan to open this entire thing up with, and then I just flubbed it.
Oh. Okay.
It's going to be like, today we're discussing the villain. Like, no, but
I love armored rings.
I just remembered that this was on my. Yeah, never mind.
But in the novel that I'm writing, the villain has all iron rings on her fingers like that. Just so you know. Side note.
Yeah, I need more.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So the thing that I think happens a lot is like the strong female archetype gets vilified. So like women that are strong, in charge of themselves, sovereigns, become the dark queens.
That was the part that I was going to mention. Yeah, exactly.
Or the witches, because they're at the fringes of society. They're weird. They're different. They're not fitting within the confines of popular society or whatever it might be, which of course is something that I take issue with now, with the sanitization of a lot of what is being presented as witchcraft, and inspired Break the Mold November, where I'm trying to get people to be like, break the mold, you don't have to be a candy witch or whatever. You can be whoever you are, and all shadows and shades of it, basically, is the idea of behind Break the Mold. And so a lot of villains, we actually resonate really strongly with them because they are something that is suppressed in a lot of us. So when we see these strong, independent villains who are taking control, and let's face it, every villain is taking their own power. They're taking their own control. They are shaping the world around them. They are not being dictated to by whatever it is, be it
Mhm.
other sovereigns, be it the relationship. If you think about Disney movies in particular, it's only with Frozen and Brave maybe before it where it kind of rejects a romantic storyline in order to complete the female. And that was a big deal in Frozen, and it was I believe it was the same in Brave before it. I didn't get halfway through Brave. I got a bit fed up with it. And that Disney have started to play around with that a little bit more, but that's only recently. In all of the older Disney movies, in all a lot of them, the completion, the happiness is with a partner, and it's usually a male-female dichotomy, and that's it. That they didn't even, play outside of that. Whereas now you have at least a little bit more, not completely, because you still get the romantic tropes and things, where it's not the completion of the hero doesn't have to have their partner to complete them. I kind of wish Gotham had gone with the Joker Riddler gay storyline, that they were
Yeah.
they were like playing with it, and I was really hoping they were going to push for it. They kind of like backtracked, unfortunately, which was a real shame. I would have thought it would have been much more interesting if they'd have played with it a little bit more than they did. But that was interesting, and that was adding dimensions to villains and things. So villains, in a loose term.
Random says, in almost every movie, witches eat babies or kill children and horrible things, and it's because we are vilified in order to outcast us from society because strong women are bad for the patriarchy.
I wouldn't say all movies. You do have quite a few strong female witch characters that I can name growing up, because I grew up in a Buffy era and a Charmed era, and regardless of how you feel about Charmed, they are strong female witches that are heroes with complexity. So, and you have Witches of Eastwick, which also kind of tried to carry that on more recently, but unfortunately picked up.
And on the other side of that, there are a lot of male villains, and so I kind of have to wonder about the kind of example that's portrayed there, because if the men are the villains and the men are the heroes, where are the women in general? They're just there to be saved.
Yeah.
But wait, what does that say about men as well? Because men are both. So they're not even all represented as a hero. Which is what you would think we would go to.
I'm just going through the movies. Like Disney movies is obviously the easiest place to start with. So in terms of male hero, it's interesting because Aladdin is your male hero with a male villain.
Yeah. So that's why I'm wondering if it's not. I mean, yeah, there's definitely an influence of that. Absolutely. Of that whole kind of dichotomy. But I also think it might go beyond that, because even the men, if we're dealing with a patriarchy, they would represent themselves as always the heroes. But no, they're both. So essentially, like, they're allowed to be imperfect as well, but women aren't? Or,
well, you could say
what is this? Or, like, they get to run the gamut, you know?
Yeah, it's because, like, in society, for example, if a man is a ball buster, a go-getter, that's in business, that's seen as a good thing. It's seen as him being ambitious or cocky. Yeah. Whereas if a woman does it, she's, a bitch. And bitch is another word we'll look at later, so I won't go into that too much. Yeah. But then again, it's like sleeping around. If a guy's had multiple partners, he's a stud. And if a woman has done that, then she's impure and a slut in some ways. And that's another word, that we will look into later. So I think there is a normalization of certain characteristics within the male dichotomy where they get away with more, whereas women are held to like this holy Madonna standard in a lot of cases. And if you've fallen from that holy Madonna standard, then you become the evil witch or the evil queen within a lot of storytelling. I'm simplifying because obviously, you know, a lot of stories do a lot of justice to this, and obviously there is in flux thinking. This is the problem for, I think, for me and Chris, because in flux thinking there is no good box and there is no bad box.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
People.
Well, and that leads into villain.
Yeah.
Really, because to see a villain, a good villain, usually has another side to them where you can relate, which you might call good.
Mm-hmm.
Their reason, their heart for why they're doing it, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not ever really as simple as just a black and white thing. And, I mean, the hero can also be pompous and self-righteous, and you know what I mean? Like,
well, they can be flawed as well. That's what I really enjoy, is when they bring flaws into the heroes as well.
Yeah. Amaryllis is like, Buffy is a good/bad character, seen as both strong and weak in certain areas. Oh, and Regina. Oh my god, I'm so into this. Like, you can't see the chat, but they're still naming people. There's Witches of Eastwick.
Yep.
Got named Jafar. Someone named Magneto earlier.
Magneto is a very, very interesting villain. And I love what Michael Fassbender did with him, because Michael Fassbender is just perfection in a man. I'll give me a minute. I'll be back in a minute.
Should we take a moment? It's time for the break, guys. No, it's not. Don't go away.
But you know, Ian McKellen, of course, did a really iconic job with him as well, and it's Magneto's a really good example, because he basically had the whole suffering of the Holocaust behind him and all that injustice, and then he believed he was
genuinely helping.
Yeah, it's just that he believed in mutants and not in mankind, and it's not hard to see why he wouldn't believe in mankind, because we've all had those moments where we're like, what is going on? And I think that in modern society, like today, I saw the Ivory piece about Trump and the Ivory news story about him allowing ivory hunting again, and that being brought into America. And I was like, I'm having one of those moments where humanity is and it's very difficult to reconcile that, and sometimes villains do represent that element that we all feel at some point, that we're just sick of people. Granted, most of us don't go up like being a villain and like kidnapping or whatever it is that villains engage in, but it's related.
I'll take the trebuchet back. It's funny for other reasons, you guys.
I was just gonna ask if that was Asbjorn's Christmas present. If you're gonna send
it was dead, yeah, it might be. I might ship him one. I don't know how that's gonna go down. That and some fruit punch.
Well, Rockstar. I want to find a mini one for Christmas. I'm gonna try and find it like a miniature one.
You just gave that away though, so
he's not one.
I don't know if anyone is familiar with the older movie Burnt Offerings. 2 female witches, one good, one evil. My first witchy movie, and I loved the evil witch and emulated her in play for a long time.
Well, The Craft, Nancy. Look how iconic Nancy is.
Yeah.
Nancy is probably the most iconic witch out of The Craft. Way more than maybe Sarah was, or the other two. Rochelle, and I can't remember what Naomi Campbell's character was called. Brain fart.
Galadriel was considered a witch to the dwarves, until Alita says. Sorry.
Mm.
Yeah. I think there's definitely examples that break these molds.
Well, yeah, and they're the good ones. They're the good ones to bring up.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not as simple as that.
But we've got to remember that storytelling originally was a way of like reinforcing social norms.
Oh yes.
And it's interesting, like in more modern times, that people have become less willing to accept people as being, for the most part. There is this unfortunate backlash against this, but most of us have gotten to the point within, I guess, human evolution where we at least try and empathize and understand people, even if we don't agree. And unfortunately, that is not true in all cases, because you have your racist cases, you have your homophobic cases, you have your sexist cases, and that's obviously an epidemic, and it seems to be becoming more of a problem with like this backlash against progression thing that's happening in society, unfortunately. Which, of course, makes our voices all the more important right now. So, go on then.
So, what I've been thinking about this, and it's for the same reason that I see Hell kind of coming to 1L, guys, the goddess Hell, coming to the forefront a lot right now. And a lot of other dark goddesses, or gods even, you might say. Like God. Hades being represented in other lights.
No, I knew you were going to Hades.
I'm just saying he is, but I said represented in other lights, right? Like coming out to, yeah. So something that I'm wondering though is that, you know, being a death midwife, I see a lot of like the death positive movement stuff growing more popular. We, as a world now, have been through a lot of shit lately. A lot of it. And yeah, it always has existed, but it feels like, at least to me, like it's been very heavy as of late. And not only that, but you and I have discussed that it kind of feels like we're in this like rebuilding after the tower phase where we're sorting through the rubble. And so we're kind of in that death place.
And there is a push-pull with that as well, though. There is that, like, the people that don't want the change versus the people that do want.
Oh, well, yeah.
And there's that push-pull thing that goes on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I'm wondering if the reaching to see the other side of the villain, to see a noble villain and a flawed hero, is part of us uncovering and looking at like our subconscious stuff, and looking at maybe the things that we've subdued, our shadow stuff, our you know, facing death, our immortality or lack thereof, and just kind of the imperfection, if you will, quote unquote.
What is also interesting about the apparent rise in interest in dark gods and goddesses, because that interplays with the idea of re-examining villains, because when you first come to a lot of dark gods and goddesses, they're portrayed as the villain a lot of the time. When I came to the Morrigan, I had everybody being like, almost everybody that I knew being like, I don't know if you want to work with her. And there's even a book which is like the Celtic Otherworld Rituals for the Dead or something. And they, in that book, say don't work with the Morrigan. And I was like, what is this? Like, in a book about the Celtic Otherworld, I was like disappointed in that book. And there was a lot of that kind of villainization of the dark goddess. And that's maybe symptomatic of the same thing, that we're overturning this idea of a simplified villain at the same time that we're embracing dark gods and goddesses, and we're overturning a value judgment on that as well, that it's not an evil god, it's not an evil goddess, it's just different vibrations around these gods and goddesses. They are secure in their own power, and they don't take any shit, and they're not like all love and light all the time. They do get their hands dirty as well, which is true with the villains of these pieces that we're talking about. And I wonder if the rise of interest in these dark gods and goddesses is tied in some way, is symbiotic in this social changing of perspective about villains, because obviously mythology could be compared to storytelling. So how we re-examine stories, and then we re-examine mythologies and try and like unravel the pieces of these things to get a better understanding of these entities may be interlinked in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And not to get us way off topic, but Random says the tower is still burning around us, y'all. And then Tracy says, so true, Random.
I feel more like we're in this push-pull like I was telling about. I feel like the world kind of blew up a bit, like for the tower, and now there's like this tug of war going on over the tower is all over the place, and people are doing this push-pull about how to rebuild. Like there are some people who want to rebuild the world in the way things used to be, with their rose-tinted glasses, in a world that never truly existed, and unfortunately that feeds into racism and homophobia and sexism and all the rest of it. And then there's the people who are like, no, if we need to build a different world because this nonsense isn't working. And there's that push-pull fight thing going on in the world. Because look at today. I told Chris about this earlier, that I was laughing about the Cards of Humanity thing, that they have bought a plot of land on the Mexican border to try and stop this wall. So these are people who are physically trying to stop the rebuilding, quite literally, of a world that is dividing and being like, no, you're an outsider. So this is a company, this is a corporation who is fighting the physical building of a wall because they feel that is against humanity. But it's and it tickled me this morning. And yesterday we had Australia voting for gay marriage in a country where a lot of the politicians are very right, very anti gay rights and things, and the Australian people voted for gay marriage to be legalized. So people are fighting back against these situations. It's just trying to find the silver lining in a lot of it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I think that as far as the tower card is, we're thinking of it as one tower, and I think there's many. It's like there's many deaths.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let's see. What do we got here, guys? Sorry. Oh, Amaryllis, to answer your thing about the ugly villains and things like that, we are going to actually be talking about the word ugly tomorrow on Joey's channel at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So, so we'll get a little more into that tomorrow. Yeah.
I would argue that the evil queen from Snow White is beautiful. It's not cut and dry with villains and physical looks.
Yeah.
I actually enjoy the storytellers telling where it's like where beauty is not synonymous with good. I prefer those kind of stories.
I was just thinking, because someone mentioned Medusa as a misunderstood villain, and I started thinking back, and I'm like, actually, if you look into most of mythology, there are some very flawed quote-unquote heroes.
So I did a whole post about the Snek mask, which is the snake mask for anyone who's... But I call them Snek because I adore the whole Snek movement. And the new...
It's a movement now?
You don't know about the movement? The danger noodles and the people showing how cute snakes can be and like booping them on the noses and things.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's a movement. It's the Snek movement.
I didn't realize
and
that was
so I did a whole blog post about this. And I actually was theorizing around the concepts of Medusa and Athena being portrayed through patriarchal society as villains. And I argued in that piece that it's possible that Athena wasn't punishing Medusa whatsoever, because Athena is known as Serpentine, and she basically gifted her virgin priestess who'd been raped. She gifted her the ability to no longer be subject to the whims of men, because then she took on a form where men weren't tempted to rape her anymore, and also she could fight back. So I have a whole theory about that. I also wonder whether or not both Athena and Medusa represented homosexual women. Now, this I can't prove. It's just a thought process that occurred to me when I was reading through it, because they both reject men. Because Athena rejects marriage, she rejects Aphrodite, she rejects males in general, and she's obviously warlike. And she, you know, this is a unusual, perhaps echo from former mythology, wherein a lot of goddesses were war goddesses as well, which is more of a primal thing, and goes before the patriarchal Greeks, and was maybe an echo of something older. And it occurred to me, like, maybe the kind of undertone of both of them is that the beauty of Medusa was considered lost on men because she rejected men and devoted herself entirely to Athena. Now, is it possible there's like a homosexual undertone to that? And so that, you know, because they completely rejected men for a lesbian relationship in a patriarchy, then they both became villainized in this myth, to the point where that Medusa was disfigured and created into a quote unquote monster. So I have some theories about Medusa and Athena. So,
well, I mean, going back to like virginal and what that meant as well, just being an independent woman.
Yeah, and virginal back then is unmarried by choice, rather than the sexual connotation that it has now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I could see that. I could see that
because she rejects male suitors. Like, Medusa out and out rejects male suitors, and there's like this whole part of her myth where she's like the men are basically trying to bully her into marriage, and how her golden hair was wasted, and this, that, and the other.
You know, it's interesting to me. So in the mythologies and everything, we have some very complicated archetypes. We have some very complicated deities. And yet, somehow, at some point in our history, we decided to strip it all down and be like, can I just get a yes or a no? This is a yes and this is a no. The end. And I have to wonder what really happened to make us do that. Did we get overwhelmed with all the details and everything and just go, nope, fuck this?
I think it's
and now maybe we're like, no, we need that back.
Well, in history, the Dark Ages in particular are known as the Dark Ages because the Christian church took over, and rather than progression, they wanted control. And rather than medicine, they wanted faith. And rather than strong women in any other roles, they wanted supplicant housewives. And there is a backwards trend right there that occurs in history, which is provable and documented and known as the Dark Ages for a reason, when everything goes backwards. And that's not just applying to women, it applies to any men that were like progressive thinkers. They burned men at the stake and crushed men just the same as females, because it drives me crazy when people are like, the witches at Salem were all women. No, they're not. There are guys that were like crushed to death and shit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And all ages as well.
Yeah. And so then they were taking power away from women in terms of allowing them to own their own land, and widows had their land taken from them, and there was this, that, and that, and it was all about control. And I really wonder, I can't say where that came from, because obviously you only have history and what's left over, but there was definitely an uprising against ideas in that point. Like, you weren't allowed to think outside the box. It was the church or stoned to death kind of. And that is that kind of thinking, and that echoes through to today, where people use all sorts of religions to be like, no, you can't go against this way of thinking, you can't think outside that box, blah blah blah. It's not just one religion either, so, and it's not all people under one religion either.
Speaking of a way of thinking, and then we'll touch more into this tomorrow, I think, but I am going to talk about this because the chat is really discussing it. But Shakti Shaman said, there is a new movie about a little boy. He is misinformed, quote unquote, by society standards, and about how he shows that it's a positive thing. My sister and I were referred to as Beauty and the Brain, or Beauty and the Beast, because she was strong, Shakti was. And she was good because she was pretty. And she says that she wishes she could attend tomorrow. And then, Amaryllis was like, that's horrible and everything. And which it is. And she said it made me stronger and it made me view beauty very different than the norm. I saw the truth behind the masks. And, that's another belief thing. Like, nope, we believe you should be this way. And you can't be this way. It's an extension. Like, nope, this is your stereotype, and that's what you stay within. There's your box.
People are less likely to be convicted as a serial killer or whatever it is if they're attractive than if they're not. And female serial killers get off a fucking lot of the time because of how they look. If they're considered to be pretty or beautiful. I can't remember what the latest one was. I think it was the one that was abroad and they killed somebody. And they were calling her Luscious Lucy or something in the media, the woman that was responsible. And there's an element of, But again, we will cover that more tomorrow because I don't
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, you were just talking about how beliefs extend to other people. Like, you want to, like, push yours on others. And so then we try to, like, put them, in a box, basically. And people don't fit in those. So the whole idea of it is flawed from the beginning.
Yep. Yep. It goes against flux because what we talk about in the idea of flux thinking is that you cannot categorize an us versus them, and to do so is backward thinking. Because I talked about this recently as well on the blog, that how stagnant it is, how much it rots us to try and stay in one place and try and put people in their box and not allow people to change, not allow people to grow, not allow people to be multidimensional and try and empathize and understand without like controlling that understanding. And I think what a lot of human beings are prone to do, and we're kind of taught to do this in all sorts of ways, is to categorize people.
Yeah.
Put people in boxes so we understand them. And this drives me nuts because it's like, who are you? What's your name? And what's your job? Because
state your business.
Yeah, somehow your job has become the defining attribute as who you are as an individual. Well, his name is John and he's a doctor, so he's worth more than Billy the bricklayer. I don't know, whatever.
Billy the bricklayer. All right. Yeah. There you go with that.
That's where I went.
Is that like Asbjorn's mod? Yeah. No, but there's definitely this need to like oversimplify so that we think we know. And I mean, that probably goes to security and control and wanting to feel like we know what to expect from this person. And then that person gets hurt or, believes that that's where they're supposed to be. And it's not really who they are.
I've got ain't what she used to be in my head now.
You got what?
Ain't what she used to be, ain't what she used to be, ain't what she used to be. Anyway.
Yeah. Good point, Gothic. Gothic is like, also non-binary people don't fit in most or any boxes, and yet we are swept under the rug and placed in a box we don't fit in. Yeah.
It's symptomatic of a stagnant society, basically, that people try and put people in boxes. And unfortunately, often when people try and do this, they're trying to create an us versus them mentality. It's a power trip. It's like, if I can make them other than me, I can make them lesser than me, and then I can like lord what it is over them.
It's all fucking fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
It's all fear of the unknown. Because it's something they don't know, whoever it is, including ourselves, about different things. And it's easier to be like, you must be this then. Than to like try to get to know it and challenge perhaps core beliefs that we hold about it.
And we make people into the villain.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of core belief challenging going on right now. And I think it's overdue, honestly.
Oh, yeah. Which is why some people are resistant to it, of course. Which is why
including my own.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We have to check ourselves because we are the only person we can really check.
Before we wreck ourselves.
Yeah. I hear that about 20 times a day now. Just so you know, that's Asbjorn in a nutshell.
Before you wreck yourself. Yeah, random, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was saying is, yeah, if I can't understand you and therefore I become uncomfortable with you, I have to try to make you become something I understand so that I can be comfortable.
Or reject.
Equals the problem.
The villainization is when you basically reject somebody because you refuse to understand them or you can't understand them.
And yeah, because it's not even like I will label you as this, so now I'm comfortable. Sometimes it's I will label you as this, so I have an excuse not to try to get to know you at all.
Yeah. And sometimes we have to be careful because sometimes there are certain behaviors in people which we're not comfortable with, and we create a line in the sand. We create a border which is for our own well-being, and sometimes that's a necessary thing. So it's not to say that you have to get on with everybody because you don't.
It's a check yourself thing, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it can totally turn into a self-fulfilling prophecy in the same right, too. Maybe that person isn't like that, but if you treat them like that, maybe they'll turn into it. You know?
And we have arrived at Chris's phrase, which I have in my notebook, which is, if you are going to treat me like the villain, then guess what?
I'll be your villain. Yeah. So sometimes it's definitely is this something that I am impressing upon by reacting in the way that I think they are, instead of getting to know who they are and just talking about it. Perhaps. And yeah, that's not always the case. Sometimes they're a dick, okay? And not in a good way, because you can be funny as that too. But sometimes no, it is better, like you said, to put up walls and guard yourself and like lay your line in the sand and be like, no, I'm not going to settle for this. This is not how you treat me. You do teach people how to treat you. But at the same time, you also teach, like, it goes both ways. You don't just teach them how to treat you as in like what you want back. You can also teach them to treat you shitty.
Yeah, if you accept certain behaviors and you allow it, then it continues.
Yes. Or like, and in that, you can also be like expecting it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, that can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's always a check yourself before you wreck yourself, because I mean, I don't consider myself a villain, but at the same time, if someone is trying to put me somewhere and I have had that discussion with them or shown them who I am and they still continue to do that, fine. I'm that to you then. I don't have to prove myself to you.
Yeah. And then an aside to that, how often do we vilify ourselves or elements of ourselves? Ugh. No. The villain has arrived.
Hello, everybody. King Asbjorn Booty Torwald, as always.
Get off.
Oh.
The true villain has arrived.
We interrupt this program for an Asbjorn cigarette break.
You'll hear a window in a second, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, what's going on here? Yes, we all have hardwired instincts, but we can also put ourselves past it, says Alita. Mora says, when I was going through school, there were forums that people wanted filled out dealing with statistics, dealing with race. And for those who came from multi-racial families, I couldn't respond to. Yeah. Yeah, again, the box thing. It doesn't work. Claire says, hi, your worship. To the man in the window.
To the man in the window. Just the man in the mirror.
I'm looking at the man with the cigarette.
Just looking at the villain in my life.
Let's see. Closed. Sometimes you just have to show how multifaceted you can be. Yeah.
It's also an interesting thing to think about how we vilify elements of the personality, how we put down things. And this has been true within us talking about shadow work a lot, is that we have to make friends with elements of ourselves that we vilify. Because, it's all parts of the human psyche. It's not good and bad. It's very limited thinking to be like, this part of us is the villain part of us because this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's kind of why I say what I say about that, is because I know that I'm more than just the one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really like a section of me that I just keep in the closet somewhere. It's just it's the circles overlapping each other that we've talked about with like Demeter and Persephone. Circle of life.
Also, something
everybody's talking about windows and mirrors and boxes now.
Something I thought Chris was going to bring up, but she hasn't, so I'm going to do it. Is how often the concept of death is vilified and put into a villainous form. How often villains portray an element of death and carry an element of death with them.
I'm just saying, I would like a glitter light being death goddess for once. Just can I just see that? It's got to exist somewhere. Come on.
So how often is Anubis portrayed as evil? Because this drives me crazy.
Yeah. Pretty often.
Just because he's the god of death. And to be fair, it was more Set that was supposed to be like take the attributes, and even then you can argue he wasn't villainous. It was just a different part of Egypt that he represented, and there was a civil war. But Anubis frequently, he's the evil jackal, and that's unfortunately in the mummy movies. It's in a lot of video games where they have like evil Egyptian gods, and it drives me crazy. It makes me go insane. Like this face. Because I'm like, this is not mythologically accurate. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, death is seen as scary because it's something that we've put to the side and tried to forget about.
Sanitize.
Mm-hmm. That would be the window.
That would. This would be my man coming to give me a kiss before he goes in the other room.
Oh. Public love, PDA. Oh, we didn't even get to see it, you guys. Oh.
As you're now, stay truthfully awesome. Find the sigil cord.
Censored. Sorry, guys.
Perfectly timed for the record. Emerald says, "LOL, so evil, god of orphans." Yeah.
Well, this is kind of true with gods as well, though, when you think about it, because like Hades gets such a bad rap, and he gets portrayed as like a villain character, and he's a god of death. And from everything that I've ever interacted with Hades, I honestly feel like him and Persephone, like their relationship was consensual. And I feel like in Greek mythology, like if you married someone you weren't supposed to marry, that was a big deal. That was like betraying the family father, head of patriarchy within your own home. So I have the feeling like Persephone actually wanted to marry Hades, and they concocted this plan and things, because I just don't get that sense from all the other myths involving Hades and Persephone, whereby, like, for example, Hades was tempted by a couple of nymphs, as in to sleep with a couple of nymphs, and Persephone stepped in and changed those nymphs into plants. Like, that's the origin of the mint story. So Minth was a nymph, myth, that Hades nearly slept with, and Persephone was like, no bitch, and turned her into a plant. So why would she do that if it wasn't a consensual thing? She wouldn't care. Like, you know, if you didn't want to be married to him, then that sort of thing isn't likely to have made you angry enough to turn a nymph into a plant. So all the rest of the mythology doesn't line up for me on that.
Or maybe it was like just another Tuesday.
Just another magic mint day. Oh.
I wish it was plant day. I'll do this my way. Yes. Hey, actually, a lot of evil gods and goddesses are protectors of children. Hecate, Loki, evil/villain. You know what I mean.
It's Hecate's big day today, isn't it? One of her big rituals today. So happy Hecate Day.
Happy Hecate Day. Let's see. Titra says, what is it to be a villain anyway? You know, is it someone who doesn't agree with you and then does bad things to each other? Like the neo-Nazis are my villains and I am theirs. But that is because we use the word they instead of we, which is like the us versus them mentality thing. She didn't say the last part. That was me. Well, and we kind of talked about this at the very beginning, which is like, what is a villain to you? And like defining that and the different perspectives there.
Then throwing it out because we're flux thinking. So
yeah, you're like, tell us about your perimeters. Now let's burn them down.
Not that this is what we do or anything.
You might have noticed.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just here to sing songs. It's just another magic mint day.
Okay, Mora says death and old age are considered villains in our society today that worship youth and cosmetics, etc.
Yeah.
That's a whole soapbox, Mora.
Yeah. That's a whole
those are the two things that I hold most sacred. So, yeah. I feel you there. Exactly. Yes. It's seen as a waste or not useful to society or a burden even.
Yeah. To be honest, growing up, I used to love all the older generation. I felt more in tune with the older generation than any other generation. I would sit and listen to stories. I thought they were,
Same. Some of my favorite memories is my grandmother and my grandfather like telling me different stories and stuff. Like while we were setting, like I would shell like snap peas and stuff like that, and with my grandma, and she'd just tell me stories about like her life and
I would go to the graveyard with my grandma, and we would go conker collecting in the that's Buckeyes for Americans. Yes. Conker collecting in the graveyards, and we go looking at all the stones and reading the dates and how they lived and died and things. So she had a big love of history, which is where mine and my sister's love of history comes from. So yeah.
Joey, go like this. You got a piece of lipstick. Other side. I'm not going to leave it there this whole time. I'm not that friend.
Oh, yeah.
Let me see. Nope. Meanwhile, to the chat. Let's see. A villain to me is someone with no, and I knew it says this. A villain to me is someone with no conscience, full knowledge of the ramifications of their actions, and choose to act anyway out of personal self-interest.
Do villains have no
conscience?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's something that we discussed in the very beginning, is that like I actually find that the best villains do.
Mm-hmm.
About certain things. That's what it is it's like selective.
Or they just have a different way of looking at the world.
Yeah, you're sorted now.
Kind of. My beautiful grey lipstick causing me issues, honestly.
I know. know. Okay, so her reply was that psychopaths have no conscience.
Okay.
Yep.
Psychopaths and sociopaths are a whole different ballgame. Technically, they fall into the realm of the very, very mentally ill. And I'm not going to villainize the rest of the mentally ill by saying that. But there is something within their brain chemistry which removes a part of their humanity completely. And that's a whole different conversation for the most part. Because what we often portray as villains, and the villains that we make, there's a struggle. Usually there is an element of humanity within them. There's a often a moral wrestling in a lot of storytelling and a lot of villains. Psychopathy is a condition, and the things that come off it, where they can't train it out of people. They can't like appeal to these people. They can't help these people in a lot of cases because their empathy is missing. And so that's just, there's something within their mental and psychological makeup which is just gone, and they can't reach them. So at that point, you're not dealing with a morality, you're not dealing with ethics, you're not dealing with any of that. You're just dealing with a person who is devoid of that. And it's frightening. It is frightening. I've done a number of criminal studies in my time when I was, back in my education days, and even since then I've watched things about it, and it is one of those things which is frightening because they,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So while she was doing that, I got curious because etymology, and I looked up the definition of villain, but not even that, but like where it came from, and it came from like villa, and it meant a rustic or boor, as in like Boor. And the meaning has been interpreted as base or low-born rustic. So like an underdog, from my understanding. Which kind of runs along what we were saying.
Yeah, I think villains for the most part are often put there by the hero, or they're put there by society. And we've seen that, as we've discussed, with like the rejection of certain types of people being made into the archetype of a villain. So like strong women becoming the dark queen, people living on the fringes of society becoming the evil witch or wizard or whatever it is. And so that would make sense within that.
So Nuit says, okay, take that different way of looking at the world too far and anything becomes acceptable, and that is about the only thing about someone that I would consider villainy. Everything else is just human nature and perception. Or perhaps I am speaking more of the concept of absolute evil as opposed to villain.
Okay. So, in psychiatry, and I'm not going to pass a value judgment on this one way or another because I am a survivor of sexual abuse at the hands of a parent. So, I'm first-hand experience of what it feels to be attacked by someone. There are pedophiles out there who go in for therapy to try and stop themselves being that way. And by therapy, I mean these people electrocute their genitals. And they sign up to that freely and willingly because they have to stop themselves being that way. Pedophiles are someone that most society agree as being wholly evil. And when they attack children and hurt children, that is an evil, evil act. And as a survivor of that, trust me, when I know the entirety of the impact that can have on a child who then survives it. But there are individuals out there who seek help. Are they then wholly evil? I'm not passing a value judgment one way or another on it. It's just a consideration. Psychopaths are more problematic because, to my knowledge, they don't seek help because they don't see anything wrong with their actions because they can't gauge right and wrong, such as it is laid down in common society. I don't agree that fluxy thinking excuses anything.
No.
I think it's just considering. It's just
different masks.
It's pushing past concepts, because if we rest on our laurels about what we allow to be good and what we allow to be bad, then people become victimized by those concepts.
So you talk about forgiveness, so I'm gonna say this out also. Well, I guess I'll wait because there's a reply. But that is someone with unnatural urges and is trying to do something about it. The one who knows full way but doesn't care. Pedophilia is not pure evil. It is an instinct that is hard to control, but does not mean the pedophile lacks empathy.
Psychopaths there is something mentally wrong. There's something mentally missing. There is something in their genetic makeup which is different to how normal individuals' genetic makeup is. Do they become wholly evil because they were born deficient of the same empathy? A lot of what they do is very, very evil. Very evil people that, murder and torture and maim and all the rest of it. The actions in themselves could be described as evil acts. I can understand that. But if there is something missing in them, does that make them wholly evil? Or is there something missing that is causing that? I think it's one of these things. It's the value judgment that everybody comes to on their own. So, but it's worth considering. I'm
well, and there's definitely a lot of emotion. I don't know what's going on with my camera, guys. There's definitely a lot of emotional baggage both ways going on too. So it's definitely like a sensitive topic.
Mm-hmm.
She says yes, because there is no self-control, no sense of responsibility, and in some cases actually take pleasure in. So here's the thing, guys. The reason we put things to you in a fluxy way is not to tell you to believe something otherwise. It is to just have you ask questions. That's it. If that's where you end up, that's where you end up. Amarilla says, I grew up in a cult who had a local pedophile who I found out about later in life, who gleaned me. But my mom worked out what was happening and got me the fuck out of there. My mom is a fucking hero.
Mm-hmm.
Claire Crafty says, a very difficult conversation. Yeah, it's definitely, like I said, it's a sensitive topic. And everyone has an opinion on it.
And a right to an opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, and a right to an opinion on it. Very much so. Yeah, Newt says these are issues that are difficult. I don't mean to put a damper on things, but these are issues that are very heavy and very real and must be addressed. Oh, absolutely. I don't think that anyone wasn't addressing them, though. We weren't covering it.
I don't think we were avoiding it. No.
Yeah. It was pure evil. It was Now we are talking about evil as evil, but it might be a great idea to bring it back to back around to evil heroes. Well, here's the thing. What's the relation between evil and villain? Because we've gotten onto evil from villain, but evil and villain are two different words.
What's the etymology of evil? Can you have a look at that while you're over there?
Sure.
Because that should show how different they are in terms of words. If literally villain is about being an outsider kind of thing. Evil to me feels more concrete than villain. Villain is maybe a role which we put people in, for better or worse. Whereas the idea of evil is much more finite than that. Like, villain is a role that can shift and has much more of a I think it has an element of redemption to it. Like, the villain can be redeemed, and often is in terms of storytelling. Villain's redemption is a big theme with a lot of people, and a lot of different types of storytelling, and a lot of ways of putting hope in for people. Like, just because you have played a role of the villain in some point doesn't mean that you can't be redeemed. You can't become better as a human being. Whatever that means to you as an individual is, again, fluxy. Like, what it means to be a better version of you is entirely up to your perspective of you. Whereas evil is much more finite. It's much more not coming back, not wanting to change, maybe.
So the reason that evil seems much more concrete to you is because evil literally traces back to mean evil. Like, all the way back to Latin.
Wow.
It is evil.
It has not shifted. It's interesting. That is interesting.
So that's why it feels so
rigid.
Solid. Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see what's going on in chat. I know right and wrong is like just and unjust as well. Outside is good to have the words heard. I'll have this villain in us. Let's celebrate the why of it and the strength of it. Good point. Ill or wicked. Yeah, so there is some mentions of ill or wicked or bad, but they aren't traced back to like the oldest version. It's kind of like the context that it was used in, kind of in the middle. But the oldest one is just evil, which I find really interesting.
So in that terms of that, is evil is a complete refusal to change.
What do you guys think about that?
I honestly didn't come expecting to discuss this element, so I'm a bit like thrown.
Yeah. Well, I think we all are. Like, I have someone in chat being like, I feel crap. This is some heavy shit. For me, evil prey on the defenseless. Yeah, so ill, wicked. Oh, absolutely, Shakti. Shakti says it's shadow work. Yeah. We're pulling up shit.
Yeah.
For the record, we didn't necessarily mean to get this heavy.
No. I really didn't think we were going to with the first one back. But here we are.
But hey, we're back. See, for me, evil defense is shadow work, but it is shadow work. The reclaiming aspect too does that.
Well, you can say it's shadow work in so much as getting a person to define what they see to be evil, because not two people will have the exact same answer as what they consider to be evil within acts. You can say killing someone is evil, but then soldiers kill people in war.
Mm.
If you want my honest answer, the thing that I find to be evil is rape. I find that and that is a part of my shadow work because I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. So there you go.
That's why evil is different for all of us. Shakti says, so LOL, so let's go back to the hero villains, end with some positive force behind this.
Yes, let's
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't know what time we are on, but I'm guessing
It is 4:49 here, so we have about 11 minutes left.
Yes, okay then. Let's take time for questions and elevate a little.
Yes. Also, let's talk about that time thing really quick too. Like the kind of schedule that we're gonna do.
Well, sorry, I interrupt again. I need
round 2. Fight.
Got juice somewhere.
You had a juice in the bag on the sofa, which I left you, so you didn't have to come in here.
It's already gone.
He just wanted to come and see us, guys. That's what it was.
Sorry, guys. Love y'all. Stay true. Stay awesome.
Hi.
Elixir of life.
Elixir of life.
Remember, don't do your homework, do drugs, and stay in vegetables.
Stay in vegetables?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't do your homework, do your drugs, stay in vegetables.
Oh, I see. You're messing with it. All right. Okay.
All right. Questions. So let's see. What is Shakti Shaman says? What is your villain, quote unquote, name for yourself? You have one?
No.
Oh.
I consider all elements of me to be equally light and equally good and equally villain at the same time. So I just call myself. I can try and think of a villain name.
Right. That's totally what I'm doing. No, actually, when I was younger, for those of you who don't know, like my whole name is Christina. And well, it's not my whole name. That's one word, but still. And I used to say that I had like an alternate side. And I don't know if you would call her the villain, but she was definitely more of the brash one, I guess we could say. And I called her Catalina, which is like essentially his like Spanish version of Christina. You know, no kind of connotation with anyone who is Spanish, but I just really liked the name, quite frankly, and was like, I wish that was my name instead. And it became a joke with my friends, where anytime something was said and it was just like, oh, that was a little, oh, all right. Thanks, Catalina. You know, and I mean, I was a teenager, so kids, like preteen even. So you're just joking around trying to find yourself through labels and things. And that's the first one that comes to mind. The other one is in my early 20s. Sorry, I got lots. The other one is in my early 20s when I had a friend, my friend and I were obsessed with Clockwork Orange. And she called herself Deadly Devotchka. And I was Droop Doll because we were, and there was this this make-believe like action team that we had made in our head. We did not actually go act out on it. We were not that sad. I'm just saying. But it was an inside joke that we had. So I guess one of those. About you?
I don't know, because
would you be like the Shadow Poker?
I feel like I should have like an alter ego, which is like a Wild West stripper style villain for some reason.
So like the saloon girl.
Yeah, like Maggie the saloon girl or something.
Maggie. I can feel that. I can see that.
There you go. That's my villain.
What about you guys? What's yours? I extend that to you as well, because that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
It's also fun. What would be your villain name? See, what are your favorite literary villains? See, that's hard for me because I don't read that many like story-oriented books. I'm usually like self-help, religion, shit like that.
Okay.
Mythology. So I'd have to go back to my teens again. And I would say that I used to be obsessed with this book series called Night World.
Oh my god, I love Night World!
You knew Night World? Yes! Okay. So my favorite villain in there was probably Ash. He was this vampire and he was pompous.
And mine. I loved him.
I loved Ash, yeah. So if anyone knows Night World, shout out to you guys, because
you realize how creepy we are that we both knew that and both had.
That's pretty weird. Maybe we are actually somewhere the same person. Okay. What about you? What about you?
Let's see. I enjoy the villainous elements within the Lord of the Rings, but I feel like the villainous elements are shadows in all characters within Lord of the Rings, because you get echo, like particularly within men, in the books, you get like shadows of good and bad within all of them. So I think that's really good. And obviously Sauron is your presence overhanging the whole thing, and then you have like a Gollum, which is kind of one of those interesting villains, which is he was broken, and this, the kind of examination of that through Tolkien's work. I think that he did a really good job. I'm trying to think. So if you've read The Dark Materials, that, which is the Golden Compass, is what they name the movie and things. And he's just released a new one in that same vein, so I need to go have a look at that. They have elements of that as well. And I've forgotten what his name is from the Terry Pratchett books. The guy that's like the ruling elite guy. I can't remember if they call him a duke or something. And he's like the behind the scenes, and he's kind of villainous from Terry Pratchett. Oh God, what's his name? It's completely escaped my brain what they call him.
If anybody knows it, put it in chat, because I have no idea. Side note, Shakti's villain name would be Faceted Mirror Woman. I like that. Do you throw like trick images maybe or something? Make people see other things? Or maybe they never saw where you were because you just like reflect nothing. That'd be cool.
With that exact shoulder movement.
Oh, and she says, I think Joey's should be the revealer, or something with blade, because she cuts through the fluff to the real shit.
Oh God.
I like that. The revealer. Also, it sounds a little strippery, like a saloon girl, like the other one. We could do both. There you go. She's the revealer.
With show tunes in the background.
Yes.
And a fan.
Tracy
fan
would
of
be the
blades.
Queen of Lightning. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, anything else? Anything else? Let's see. Is there any evil persons in mythology?
Mythology doesn't tend to be cut and dry that way.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even yesterday I was finding some Aztec mythology for a friend, and some of the Aztec mythology is very interesting, violent. Because obviously you've got sacrifice and stuff in there, but again,
yeah,
it doesn't tend to mark gods or people as very evil.
Well, and the thing is, and that's exactly what I was about to say, Nui, is that kind of brings us back to evil, which, you know, is this evil or a villain you're looking for in mythology? Because evil would change according to the person.
I mean,
from
even
what we
with
just discussed.
Christian mythology, like Lucifer wasn't a wholly evil being.
Yeah.
Pride was the reason for him falling.
Diamond Lil would be Mara's. Randoms would be mirror shards, but I think Mira shards would be.
I was going to say mirror shards.
More. Yeah. Yeah. Amaryllis is asking, did we touch on reclaiming the villain?
I had it written down. I don't know if we fully got to it.
We kind of talked about, we definitely talked about villain. And we talked about some reclaiming. And kind of what that means.
I mean, I've talked...
I guess we could go a little more, like, literal with it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked in my blog posts about literally embodying the archetype of the dark goddess and what that means. So if you want a little bit more in depth, you can check that out. But to summarize what I talk about in there is being okay with your personal sovereignty and being okay with sometimes taking on the role of the villain when people are painting you in the role of the villain because you're in charge of who you are and like you're not allowing shit into your life, and then sometimes people paint you as the villain for saying no. And it's been around a lot again lately that no is a complete sentence and you do not have to justify all your decisions to people, and we have to get over the idea that saying no makes us the bad guy. And I did talk a little bit about like the elements of ourselves that we vilify, and this is kind of an offshoot of that sometimes we don't take care of ourselves because others or ourselves vilify us for not saying what we need and just being pleasing other people. And that's very true of women in particular, because we're taught to be the helper, the healer, the mother. And rather than sometimes realizing that sometimes it's perfectly all right for us to say, no, this is not okay, this is not acceptable, this is the line in the sand, we feel vilified by our need to disconnect from that situation. And I'm not a fan of the whole, cut toxic people out of your life straight away, boom, because I think that's a modern epidemic of lack of empathy and lack of understanding in a lot of cases. But on the other side of that, we sometimes need to be like, no, this is not okay, and that doesn't make us a villain. And kind of like what we've been saying the whole way through is villain isn't as cut and dry as we make it out to be anyway. So
yeah, so I guess reclaiming the villain would kind of be reclaiming that side of you that may be marked as that, or that you might be seeing yourself as that, going, okay, so yeah, maybe not go to an extreme, but some of this is valid. Some of this is okay.
For example, how many villains are in total control of their sexual nature? that are okay being sexual and voluptuous and flirtatious, like we talked about with Ursula taking up, with her movement. Even Maleficent in the Disney movie does it, where she flirts with Philip a little bit. And women being in control of their sexual freedom is not and should not be vilified. Yet it does get vilified in modern society. So there you go. There's one very stark example that I can think of where a lot of the villainous women are played like the Black Widow. You can even get into the archetypes of them: the Black Widow, the seductress, the woman whose sexual arts are used to deceive or whatever. And being in charge of your own sexuality in modern times should be encouraged, not the other way around. I mean, again, you can, there's a line between sexual freedom and liberation versus manipulation and control. So where the line is a personal moral judgment. But there you go. There's an example of reclaiming the inverted commas villain within the self.
Yeah. And where is it? Where's my chat? It went away. Okay. Emerlis, to answer your question about Hecate Day, it's called Hecate's Night. If you look up November 16th for that, it should come right up. There's a bunch of stuff on it. But she got so many days. I'm going to be real honest. At this point, I'm just like, all the days are Hecate Day. Are you kidding me? There's at least 4 that I can think of right off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great. I like Hecate. I literally have her symbol on my foot. She's a familial matron. Yep. But yeah, there's a lot of days. So just to pop that in real quick. Okay. So, oh. Trinicus. That's Kristen's villain name. Nice. All right, dude. We are a little bit over. And I have to go get my husband and such. So that's always what I'm saying. Huh?
I've left him somewhere. I must go fetch him.
Yes, I must go find him.
Do you want to do a little bit of a promotion things before we wrap up then?
Sure. Sorry. I was twitching. Well, wait. Oh, Amaryllis is demanding that we wait and saying that she wants to hear our evil laughter.
I don't know that I can even laugh on command. How about that?
Let me channel my mother here. She has an amazing, like, cackle that she does. Like, it would echo out of the house every Halloween night.
So I was somewhere with like Evil Queen and you went full on like Wicked Witch. That's interesting to know.
I did, because that's the one I grew up hearing constantly. Yeah. You can do low. So, okay. Anyway, yes. So, first of all, we are going to be on Joey's channel tomorrow talking about the word ugly. And I should have had my ring on for that laugh. Damn it, guys. I'm just forgetting it the whole time. Anyway. No, we'll be on Joey's channel tomorrow at 3 p.m. Talking about reclaiming the word ugly. And then
3 p.m.
Let's see.
8 p.m. UK time.
Yes, sorry. 3 p.m. Eastern. 8
GMT.
UK. Yeah. Yes. And then next week, though, we're going to try out a different time. And guys, let us know what you thought of this time slot, because we've been trying to rearrange it better, because we know that not everybody can see us at, like, for the Americans in the East, like 10 a.m. Or even earlier for a lot of us. So, like, we're trying to get different time spots so we can give everyone a chance to kind of be live and talk and take part in things.
I felt good about this time, though.
Yeah. And a lot of people were saying, no, this is really
better.
cool.
Okay.
I usually don't get to be here, so that's good. Next week, we're going to mess with it a little, and we're going to try 1 p.m. Eastern, so it'll be 2 hours before this started today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, you're on Saturday. I think you're on Saturday because of Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So instead of mine being on Thursday next week, it'll be on Saturday because we will be celebrating Thanksgiving. I'll be eating all the turkey. And yeah, and then also you guys, because I see you guys talking about it in the chat. Thank you. What the Flux podcast is out, if you guys didn't know about that. We have a podcast. We put 4 episodes out every month, so 1 a week, every Tuesday. The third one is always a custom-made journey. The last one that we did was 31 minutes, and it was some deep shit. We got some people in chat that have done it, so.
And we've just recorded the second one.
Yes, we did, and that's exciting too. So yeah, so the podcast, I will put the link underneath after this for those of you who are interested. You can also check out Joey or my channel or look up What the Flux podcast on Facebook. It'll come right up, and that'll show you how to get there if you're interested. And thank you for that, Random. So there is a sale going for November. Right now it's $20 for the month, and we will honor that, and you will continue to be charged $20 for the rest of this. For the month, if you sign up before the end of November. Once December hits, it'll be $30. Because Joey and I do divide this amongst ourselves. So, yeah.
I think a pretty good price point with it, though. You get a lot.
Yeah, because it's not just that. There's also all kinds of threads and prompts. There's a bunch of conversations that happen within the Fluxling group, like the group that we have for the members. And a lot of the members are in chat right now, so thank you guys. I'm glad that you guys are really enjoying it. Yeah, we do polls. There's private lives with us as well that don't get shown as podcasts or anything like that. So yeah, that's something to check out. Each month we have a new topic that we discuss and delve into.
We support you through the process, so that if you're confused by any of it, or if any of the subject matter is not lining up where you want it, like me and
or
Chris,
like overwhelming maybe, or
we're supporting everybody through it as much as we can, and making more of a conversation about it too, which is awesome.
Yeah, which is really what we wanted, is something more interactive. And then also, as always, guys, I have my mentorship stuff going on. Ancestral mentorship, shadow work mentorship, intuitive spiritual, where is like the overall. Craft thing. Oh, Mira. Yeah, so I am going to say in December officially that the paints will be launching. I will not give a date yet until I actually have that paper here and I for sure know that it's like cleared and everything. But in December, the paints will be back for sure. Okay. So that's exciting. The Hellcopy Death paints. And my Ancestral e-course is on sale right now, guys. It's usually $75. It is $50 right now. So if you're interested, you've been looking for it, you're not sure, and also going into the gold months, we tend to focus a little more on that. It is available as well, and the links should be down below to my website where you can find any of this information about me. Okay. With that, I'm going to kick it to my lovely spiritual sister, Joy Morris. Anything you want to plug? I know you got a bunch of stuff going
on. I'll start off by saying that Asbion has just released a Sigil e-course, which is a $25, I think he charged it at. And
for those of you that don't know, that's the Lord of the Window that passed through here a few times.
And you can find his stuff and some of my stuff on gumroad.com/Torval. You can also book consultations and things with me on there if you want to, because I do offer them. It's not my primary thing, but I do enjoy connecting with people and having a one-on-one consult and chatting with people as well. And for the store, I'm gearing up to start releasing Yule things. Frostlight is almost at a point where I'm ready to launch it for the store. Frostlight, I'm going to try and make a video about it. It's unfortunately, with sharing a laptop, it's making videos a lot more difficult. Like lives and things I can manage okay on the iPad, but like I can't upload a video longer than 10 minutes with the iPad. So it's a little bit more sporadic than I'd like, but I'm going to try and get a video around the idea of frost magic and release Frostlight with that. And that's going to be one of the main Yule sets. The other one is going to be the Kaliach, which is a sneak peek because I haven't released any pictures or anything of that yet. And the Dark Witch of Winter is a couple of candles that are going to be that too. So we're going to have anointing oils for those. We're going to have spell oils for those. We're going to have a whole usual shebang for the store with that. And on store right now, we have just released the first of the spell boxes, which is the Helm of Awe. I think it's the Aegiseer, which is a new line of spell boxes of protection and things of that to do with the store. I'm also going to be releasing slates with sigils on them, which you can use as altar slates, altar plates. There's magical points. The Ode to Ogham is my announcement of my first publication, my first book that will be coming. I've decided to focus for the Ogham for the first one. The Shadow Ogham will be the second one. But for now, we're going to focus on the Ogham, and I'm looking into maybe doing some Patreon stuff to deepen that. So if anyone's interested in me doing some Patreon work where we can have some more in-depth Ogham work, which is separate to everything, I'm thinking of doing that too. I was just announced as one of the top 75 witchcraft blogs in an independent poll, which is really cool. So there will be more blog work coming out. Is that everything?
You talked about, yeah, I think so.
I think that's everything for now.
All right, cool. And someone asked if we could, Shati, is it possible to do some lives in the evenings and weekends for those normally work? That would depend on what your time zone is, Shakti. We usually do it at 10 a.m. Eastern, and then I can only say Eastern because that's what I have. And then today's was 3 p.m. And then next week's will be 1 p.m. We're going to try and do that. But sadly, Joey is in the UK, and
sadly,
like 7 p.m. to us. No, because of the fact that like there's such a big difference.
Yeah.
That for a lot of people, our like evening is your midnight.
Yeah.
So it's midnight at like 7 p.m. for her, 6 or 7 p.m. I think. So yeah. That's part of the issue, guys. And
because it's like nearly 10 p.m. now for me. So
Joey
it's probably 10 p.m. Yeah.
Cool. Joey is fabulous. We would love to have her a ton, but we also want her to get her rest.
I'm not good if I don't sleep. I'm all kinds of crabby.
Okay, let's see. Chris, when you have more hell videos, I am currently working on that. The next one should be up soon. Okay. All right, guys. So we're going to go. Again, if you're interested in any of our stuff, links are down below. I'm about to add Joey's on because I did not. Am I the only Southern Hemisphere that wakes up for these? We've got a few people that are Southern Hemisphere. But, I mean, that's the thing. Underneath this video, guys, what time zone are you?
What time? Yeah, and what time you prefer, I guess.
Yeah. Because we are trying to work around that and work with you guys and find a space, but yeah. We also run businesses too, so we also can't be up until like 2 at night because we have to be up in the morning as well. So, all right. Guys, we're getting out of here. I got to get my husband and shit. So, I love your faces.
Stay flexy.
And we will see you tomorrow on Joey's channel. Okay?
On the flip.
Yes. On the flux flip.
On the flip. Flux flip flop.
All right. Bye, guys.